A historic day for the Forest City, as 190 years ago, the city of Rockford was founded by Germanicus Kent, Thatcher Blake, and Lewis Lemon. WIFR reporter Alyssa Kelly talks with organizers of a Founders Day event on the importance of highlighting the city's history and the men behind it.
In celebration of Rockford's founding, people took in the sights and sounds of an uncommon life, telling the story of a founder who is sometimes overlooked. Those are some of the lyrics to Rollin' Home to Rockford, an original song sang by Ron Holmes Saturday for Rockford's Founders Day event.
I write historical figures. I write that kind of thing all the time. So then I said, hey, I want to do something about Lewis Lemon.
In 2018, Dorothy Page Turner, along with Carl Towns, who portrays Lewis Lemon, performed their show, Lewis Lemon, An Uncommon Life, for the first time at International Day of Peace. Turner says she wanted to do something big, highlight an ex-slave who had become one of the city's founders.
I learned some things, first of all. I didn't know about Lewis Lemon and Rockford.
Right here, I'm holding a history book published in 1976 about Rockford, Illinois. But Dorothy Page Turner explains to me that one founder is missing from the cover. And that founder is Lewis Lemon.
In 1976, Gene Horvath actually did the pulling together sculpture.
When the published book didn't include Lemon, but the sculpture did, caused controversy as to why he was not in the published book that same year, leaving Rockford residents confused to this day.
We are Rockford.
The statue is taken down, but by fall 2025, the statue will be remounted at Founders Landing in Davis Park, thanks to a $200,000 donation from the city of Rockford.
Lewis Lemon is going to get his due.
An 8th grade class in 1995 actually found a Lemon's empty gravesite and placed a gravestone reading, "Born a slave, died free."
As a recognized founder of Rockford, Lemon also has a local elementary school in the Forest City that shares the same name.